It's the Brad and John Show.
It's the Brad and John Show. This is the C Block, the Charlie Brock. Today's date is March 20th. It is a Thursday, and we're pretending it's a Friday because John and I are not going to be here tomorrow. Okay, I looked up the business from last segment, last block. I looked up on YouTube, the Al Gore TED Talk said it was 18 years ago, but that's not necessarily the exact time. Sometimes, you know this from doing on YouTube stuff, you see things on there that says it was 10 years ago, but it was uploaded 10 years ago, if you know what I'm saying. So in other words, it's been on.
Yeah, the talk was probably from much earlier.
Right. The TED Talk has been on, at least it's been on YouTube for 18 years ago, which would have put it in 10 years ago would have been 2015, another 8 would have been, that would have been like 2007, I guess it would have been, wouldn't have been like if it were 18 years ago. 2007, would that be about,
I think
about
so,
right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I believe it was earlier than that. But anyway, that's the one where he talks about the fact that the ice caps are going to be gone by 2015, blah, 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 blah. Okay. One other thing to mention, I can't remember what it is. Anyway, let's just go into I'm having a rough morning for a number of different reasons. More technical problems here going on behind the scenes, which I won't bore you with. Okay, let's do this. Let's go into this right here. And this is my new favorite jingle. Here we go.
What would John do? What would John O do? What would John do? Do-do, do-do. What would John do?
It's a new segment of the show where what I do is I go WWJD. I throw out something and I ask John Combest what he would do. Now, the reason I do this is because I've been accused of being a little bit off-center, so to speak, and some of my actions are not necessarily the actions of most other people. But John is one of these guys that used to be the corporate dude, the corporate comms guy for Monsanto/Bayer, and he has a very reasoned approach to life. Would that be a good way of determining you, John?
In some respects, sure. Yeah, when it comes to giving advice to people, I love the way you describe yourself as off-center, Brad. Boy, that's generous. Yeah, I think I have a pretty objective view of you.
I'm not like your other kind of people. Okay, I'm just a little bit different. Okay. Here's the WWJD issue of today. Do you know I got our stations got hammered, as a lot of stations. Matter of fact, I understand from the smartest woman in the world, I don't know if they got it fixed, that Channel 5 has been off the air for like several days. I don't know if they got it fixed or not because of storm damage.
I heard that, yeah.
Yes. Okay, the storm was not good to us broadcasters. The wind damages towers, antennas, and things like that. The lightning, I don't have to say what lightning does. Everybody knows what happens with the lightning. I have, matter of fact, if you want, I will send you a picture of an antenna connector, which used to be an entire antenna connector, which is now only about a third of what it used to be because the rest of it has been vaporized by a lightning strike on the crap transmitter, okay? So I'm trying to get it fixed, and what do I get? I get a text message. And what's interesting is I get a text message, and I have no idea who this person is. Someone knows my phone number, and they texted. You want me to read it to you, John?
Yeah, please do. And now, Brad, how might they have possibly gotten your cell phone number?
Because I give it on the air, 314-280-8880, and it's on the websites. It's everywhere, okay? Here's the text. And keep in mind, this is for crap, our AM 1350 transmitter, which is down right there on Highway 47, about a mile north of the Missouri River, right across from the Washington Airport. Here's the text. Hi, Brad. A friendly suggestion. You will get more listeners if you switch the crap transmitter from the dummy load to the antenna system. Vern. Okay, here's what he's saying. If you have a transmitter, you can do one of two things with it. You can put it to the dummy load, which means it's not really radiating out into the ionosphere. It's not going anywhere. It's maybe going, you can probably hear it for a couple hundred feet. But if you to hook up your transmitter to the antenna, it radiates out into the ethersphere or whatever, the ionosphere, and goes for miles and miles and miles. So let me read it again. Having said that, Brad, a friendly suggestion. You will get more listeners if you switch the crap transmitter from dummy load to the antenna system. Vern. Okay, John, your reaction to that?
Yeah, I think that Vern is probably assuming that you don't know the condition of your transmitter. And I think he's sending you a friendly suggestion that, hey, Brad, did you know that you don't even have this hooked up to the transmitter?
Okay, and would you say there's a snarkiness level to that?
I don't know. So it's impossible to, first of all, read somebody's mind, but also guess what they're saying. I think if you wanted to be hyper defensive about it, you could think that the guy was being a jerk, and you could think that he was calling you a dummy for not knowing the difference between the dummy option and the other option. To me, it sounds like he thinks, hey, maybe Brad doesn't know maybe Brad hasn't been to the transmitter site in a while and doesn't understand what his setup is.
Okay, John.
Or maybe he thinks Brad has enough money to actually pay somebody to do the grunt work while Brad goes out and does ad sales and does executive stuff and doesn't think that you go to the transmitter 3 times a week.
It's funny you should mention that, John, because you know what I did with this amazing thing called Google? I got his phone number and I Googled it. And guess who came up?
Does he work for? Now I know I shouldn't act like I'm just guessing because I'm so brilliant. You told me that he works for a different radio station, right?
He works for a bunch of other radio stations, which are all our competitors. His name is Vernon Jackson. And I looked this up, and sure enough, I'm like, okay. And the crazy thing about it is, I don't know who this guy is. I've never heard of him before in my life. He lives in Wentzville, and he works for. There's one guy by the name of Gino that used to work at Casey, and unfortunately, he was Sam Caputa's cousin or something like that, or his uncle or something. I don't know what it was. And unfortunately, Sam Caputo, who all of us in the radio business had tremendous appreciation for, excellent engineer, and unfortunately when Emmis sold their stations here in St. Louis and Sam lost his job, Sam killed himself, which was very sad.
Okay.
And,
all right. So anyway, this guy works for. Now, is there any way that and I think this is an important question. Is there any way that anybody would choose the dummy option voluntarily?
No.
You get what I'm saying? Like does he think it was just a mistake? You get what I'm saying?
Okay. So you want me to tell you what I did?
Yeah, I definitely want to hear that.
Okay. I'm trying to take the high road on this kind of stuff. Okay? I really am. And one of the things I've done over the years, and I got back into doing it, I send out thank you cards. And John's going to say, oh my God, you actually mail things? Right? Aren't you going to say that, John?
Yeah, I don't open mail. Even if I know it's a thank you card, I don't even read it. But go ahead.
You wouldn't, if it was a nice card, if it wasn't look like it was just some kind of mass-produced,
Yeah, if it said Hildebrand, I wouldn't open it. I'd throw it in a pile, and then I'd probably just shred it one day.
So I got out one of my thank you cards, and once again, this is maybe the spooky thing about the internet. Not only do I know who he is, I have his home address because it appears on a bunch of different things when you Google somebody's phone number. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know the fact that you can Google a phone number and you can find out who it is, where they live, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So what'd you say?
I sent him a nice little thank you card. I sent him one of my thank you cards.
And what was the tone of your thank you?
I said, Vern, I can't remember exactly what I put. I would have never thought about that. Thank you very much for your input. Brad. Okay.
Now, well, that was a great decision, Brad. You should be proud of that. That was a great way to handle it, I think.
So I also called him and left a message on his voicemail. And after I mailed the card, he called me back. And,
how did that conversation go?
Well, I told him, I said, Vern, I don't appreciate your little snarky little comment.
Okay. So wait a minute. Let me pause you here. So your phone call, did he actually receive your note in the mail? Do you know?
No, because of the fact that I literally got back to the office. It ticked me off. I got back to the office. I grabbed one of my thank you cards. I had some other mail to do. I wrote out my thank you card. I went and I mailed it, took it to the post office, dropped it in the mailbox to the post office. And about an hour after I dropped the card in the mail, he called me back. And
Okay. I get what you're saying. And so the tone of your conversation with him, where you say, hey, I don't appreciate your snarky attitude, directly contradicts the statement that you made in your thank you note. So you're sending him mixed messages. On one hand, you're saying, I don't like your snarkiness, and you're assuming negative intent. But in your note, you're pretending like you're a nice guy who's just saying thank you.
No. In my note, I said, I never would have thought of that. Thanks for your advice on that or something.
Sounds kind. Yeah, he's not a mind reader either, so he's not going to know that you were
the point of that is,
said it was snark being a jerk.
In engineering circles, that is snarkiness at its best because of the fact that once again...
In your view, it's snarkiness at your best. You're applauding your own note. Okay.
Well, but see, here's what's frustrating to me. Okay? I said to him on the phone, I go, and the crazy thing is, I know exactly what he does because he engineers for KLPW, and he lives in Wentzville. He drives right back and forth across in front of my transmitter site right there on Highway 47. I don't know how many times a week, probably a dozen times a week. I have no idea how often he goes down there and does work. He tells me all these stations he works for, and they're all like KLPW and stations like that. And I said to him, and then he says, well, you've had problems with your signal for a while now. And I go, Vern, why didn't you call me and tell me? I mean, and more importantly, I'm a guy that, the radio business has not been nice for any of us. Why didn't you call me up and tell me? And why didn't you come by and help me work on it? And once again, if he's a contract engineer, which is what he is, he could have called me up and said, Brad, I know your problem. Pay me $100 and I'll fix it for you. I'll go, Vern, here's $100. Get what I'm saying? But
yeah, I get what you're saying. So tell me more about the phone conversation. So it started by you saying, hey, I don't appreciate your snarkiness.
I didn't say those exact words, but he got it in a hurry. He got it in a hurry that I didn't appreciate the fact that he randomly texted me. And the interesting part of it was I thought this was a joke at first because of the fact that Vern Casper, who used to be the owner of KFAB, God, it's sort of weird to think about. Vern's dead, now his son, Steve Casper. They're both dead. Vern Casper was notorious at this kind of stuff. So this is sort of like a radio inside joke that, like people back in the day, we would call people and leave messages in their voicemail. We'd imitate Richard Miller. Hey, boy, it's Richard. It's Richard. Call me back right away. It's Richard. I want to hear from you right now.
Okay, I get it.
We do that kind of stuff. Okay, so I originally thought it was like a joke. It was one of my radio buddies, but when I did the phone number, I found out his name is Vernon Jackson. It's a real dude, and he's down there, and he's in Wentzville. So, but see, and let me take it one step further. Okay. I'm going to tell you something. We have to be out at 8, or you got a minute more?
No, we're good.
Okay. Here, I saw this thing from Randy Raley, and you're going to make fun of me, and I mean this sincerely. I saw this thing on Randy Raley's Facebook page announcing the fact.
That?
Randy Raley is the guy who used to be a KC jock a long time ago, and he's the guy who's the morning guy. Matter of fact, it's interesting. With the little tiny signal they have in the St. Louis area, he was voted KBDZ, and his morning show was voted. The station was voted the best rock station in the St. Louis area and the best morning show of the St. Louis area. Most people don't even know who he is.
Okay, that's great. And go ahead. What you saw on his page?
He is the guy that sent the announcement out that now that KBDZ is now taken over to Wolf. The K-Wolf frequency is now on 101.7. And I sent him, because I don't have his phone number, I put him, you can go look, if you go look on Facebook, you'll see my post on there. I said to him, Randy, send me a promo, and I will promote your radio station on Westplex 107.1. And I also called the office yesterday, left a message for him to try to promote their station on my station for free. Now, John, why would I do that? Why would I do that?
Because you believe that a rising tide lifts all boats.
I do, and you think that's BS, don't you?
No, I think it's great. I think that also if you're him, now I'm sure he hasn't returned your call yet, right?
No.
Okay, because he probably has important, serious work to do, and maybe he'll get around to your message, and maybe he won't. And you can't take it personal. You'll take it very personally if he doesn't return your call right away.
No, I won't.
Because you're tethered to your phone and you live with your phone nearby. But for a normal person, they might get your message and say, hey, I'll get back to Brad when I get back to him. That was nice of Brad to reach out to me. I'll get back to him when it's convenient for me.
Okay, 3 different things. Okay, that's one of them. Number 2, years ago, when KFUO lost their frequency, when it was sold, the Lutheran Church sold it to the God Squad people to Joy 99. The guy's name, I can't remember his name anymore. He was one of the KFUO classical music guys. They got another frequency. Actually, they're 107.3. They're just above us. And there was an event that was held out at the Sound Room in West County. Sort of, hey, grand opening. We got this classical radio station back on the air. Jim Connett, I just remembered his name. Jim Connett. I met him personally. John Beck was there. John Beck was instrumental in getting the station back on the air doing classical music. And I said to him, Jim, put together a promo and I will run it on my station for free. And he looked at me and go, why would you do that? That's number 1. Number 2, the guy who runs my old station, actually the second station I started at, WSIE, over the campus station. It's not the campus station, but the college radio station of SIU Edwardsville. The guy who runs it over there is Jason Church. I said, Jason, he's running a jazz format. Send me an ad. I'll run the ad for free. He looked at me like I was crazy. He never sent me an ad. Number 3, when I had my little tay-to-tay with the Lutheran folks, with KFUO and their translators, which I'm having a problem with, I said to the guy, send me a promo and I'll run it on my stations to promote KFUO, AM and FM. And he looked at me and he goes, why would you do that? I'm going like, what is with people, where I'm trying to help them? Once again, they don't understand. They're locked in this stupid, mindset. Oh, you're my competition. And you're going to make fun of this, I'm in the new YouTube mode, where if you're Cletus McFarland, you have JH Diesel on your channel because he's got his own channel. Does he compete with you? Yeah, he does. But once again, if you promote his channel, he promotes your channel, everybody benefits. Don't they, right? Right, John?
Yeah, I think so. So, it's a good reminder, Brad, that you do kind things for people. And sometimes it's not always accepted and it's not always appreciated. And sometimes other radio stations aren't going to invest the time in putting their own promo to send to you because they don't consider it a priority and they don't consider you a priority. But that doesn't mean that you have to change your actions based on how other people take your kind work, And I think you're doing a kind thing for other people, but you can't expect other people to always appreciate it.
Well, John, I appreciate that, and I will end the station by saying you're very learned when you say that. And I do have to get my emotions in control because I found out all those people drive Teslas, and I'm going to go bomb all their cars. So
yeah, you're probably gonna go burn them, right?
I'm going to go see if that Tesla Cybertruck really is bulletproof. I'm just kidding. Don't anybody go.
The worst thing you could do, Brad, is hop in the car with them and tell them a story about Ron Grubbs and tell them to just keep driving. And then eventually, by the time you're done with 1/3 of your stories, you'll be so far out of Tesla range that they'll never be able to charge their car. Ask them if they know a story about a guy from Country Club Car Wash. I don't know who made the Tesla Ocean, but it sure wasn't Elon Musk's fish.
John, say goodbye, John.
See you on Monday, Brad.